choice.
What's up, brother? So, Eddie Thomas, we're going to get into a little bit of everything's a choice stuff for the choice. And I sent a little information on what I called the progress report. And so what's cool with Eddie, and I'm just going to give you guys, if you guys don't know him yet, he's a genius when it comes to just throwing stuff out really quickly on new information. And that's why it's going to be very fun. Eddie, where can they follow you at to see more Eddie?
I got an Instagram and a TikTok, pure.defiance. More than likely we'll have to change that in the future just because that's not really something that I brand to currently. I just do it for fun.
Fair enough. They can follow you when you change it.
Works for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, when it comes to in a relationship, here's where one thing I found is people are playing the game of love. They're in relationships, and people for the most part feel like pretty good at it. I'm good at relationships. It's always them who they don't get it. Other people just don't get it. And so when it comes down to that, I kind of say, take the inventory on how good are you in a relationship, and the way you would, measure it is your basic categories. Like, how well do you listen? How do you show love? Do you have empathy for that person? Do you show compassion? Can you control your emotions more than they control you? And I think what I found is, as humans, for like a protection mechanism and for safety, you create a false identity around love. You don't take an honest look at yourself, and you create a delusional self-impression that you believe, like, I'm really great at this and they're just not good. I'm doing it right. They're doing it wrong. And I think there's a few things I've been writing on, and I haven't done that video yet for this, but as far as the writing for what's coming out in the next book is breaking down the components of love that would be essentially the rules. And nobody really reads the rule book. They just think they're good at it. And as far as that goes, is before I start getting into like how to measure it more accurately, have you seen people like this or different point of view?
I mean, I absolutely have, but I think one of my main questions would be is, where is the rule book? Who made this? Who set the boundaries and who made the rules that go along to the game of what we call love? I think a lot of that stems around society and what we deem appropriate and acceptable. So when I hear you say things like the rule book, it really draws the question as to, is that static or is it subjective? Does it apply to everyone at every time? Is it a platform you can build off of, or is it ever changing? I don't think rules necessarily apply in love, because love is just, basically it's a fantasy, and the fantasy is what it is that you can create.
I would agree in part, the fantasy of like what you can create. But when you were saying that, like that, who wrote the book of love, like that old song.
Wonder, who wrote the book of love?
Yeah, don't quit your day job, but I love it anyway.
Not where I'm going. But yeah, who wrote the book of love? Who made these rules? Let's see. I remember I was writing in like, what are the components of love? And here's where I'm going to go off topic a little, but we'll come back to it. Where we had that sacrifice and serving, like these are the triangle, I guess. Sacrifice and serving, needs and expectations, and then reciprocity with amplified emotions. It's almost completely different rules for a relationship than you have in every other dynamic. But those seem to be the rules for love. Like there's who wrote the book of love. There's rules there that we have, but nobody really understands those or puts those together. Like when I say like there's a reciprocity, and people go, what's that mean? like I don't know what that is. Or amplified emotions. Everything in a relationship is dialed to 11, and we don't really account for that because the way I interact with you or other people, I'm not putting together that I'm amplifying it up. I think I'm doing it right. And I feel like I'm the same here as I am with everybody else. Well, then how come you have all these emotions that you don't really put into other dynamics like jealousy or anger or, some of the expectations that fall in line, or how come I did this for you, but you're not doing this for me? Those things all creep in and we feel like we're communicating it really clearly. Like I really understand this until you ask somebody, what do you like? What do you want? Or like, how do you like that? And it turns into a bunch of answers like, well, I don't like it when she does this, or I don't like it when he does this. And I don't like that my ex did this. And I don't like when people did this. And we still think like we're doing it right and they're doing it wrong, which is kind of where I have that delusional self-impression part, which gets into like, what fantasy of love are you trying to make? And do you know it? I guess, like you said, love's a fantasy. Well, what are you trying to make? Because I don't know if you guys are both on the same page with this one.
And I agree. I think a lot of that comes down to open lines of communication, and not only communication, but the comprehension of the communication. Because you can speak all day long and not understand a word of it. So if you don't comprehend what's going on within the communication that you're setting, you're not really going to come to a conclusion of how to be able to adjust, adapt, or fix whatever it is that you have going on within your love triangle. And the fantasy that is portrayed in society. So you have your Disneyland fantasy where everything is blissful and beautiful all the time. They don't show the cutscenes. They don't show the nitty gritty dirty of where Snow White is not in a good mood.
She's a raging bitch about the dishes.
Yeah, they don't give you that. They cut that part out and they show you all of the good stuff. But that's not reality. The reality of it is you're gonna have your goods and your bads. It's how you work through them and the way you guys are able to adjust and sacrifice from one end to the other. If you're able to go, okay, you're being a bitch about the dishes right now, so I have two options at this point. I can bitch and complain about you bitching and complaining, or I can adjust my behavior and see what I can make happen to be able to reduce that. But then you have ego that comes into play. Should I adjust on behalf of her? She was acting out of pocket, or he was being a dickhead about this. Like, yeah, you if you set your ego aside of it and you're just like, all right, there's a problem and there's a solution. Do I want to fix it or do I want to complain about it? But that's very logical. And logic a lot of times doesn't play into the emotional aspect of what a relationship revolves around. 85% of your relationship is going to be emotionally based.
But we don't know the rules. It's just my feelings. I just feel like it's not right. You're not doing it wrong, or you're doing it wrong. I agree with you. Where do you adjust? When does a sacrifice make sense? How do I adjust for that? And here's my prognosis on that entire scenario. You remember in school, like in the middle of the semester, you get that, report card. That was your progress so far, the progress report. This will let you know if you're like on the right path for doing well, for hitting good grades, or if you're, getting low marks and bad grades. And my prognosis for this and how to use that, how do you use that information in a relationship? Because we have that delusional versions of ourselves that we have to keep intact as long as possible. I can't break what I think I'm good at. I can't have any chinks in this armor or feel like I'm the flawed one. So I'm not going to, listen or acknowledge or search for unmet needs or understand requests or work towards agreements. And so what I'm going to do instead of try to measure how good my progress report in these conversations is going, I'm going to play a game called Who is Right? I know that I'm right because I feel like I'm right. My 85% of emotion says I'm the right one and you're doing it wrong. And I'm going to let you know how right I am. I don't know if you're familiar with Marshall Rosenberg with nonviolent communication. But he starts off with the world is always trying to play who is right. And when you play who is right, nobody wins. Like nobody wins in the game of who is right. There's always a cost there. And when you're doing that, you're pushing somebody into what your reality is versus their reality, because we both have a delusional version of how good we are at something. And when the reality doesn't measure up, we get defensive and get angry. And we start feeling like you're judging me or trying to shame me into changing or making me feel bad. And that's when people start doing their defense mechanisms. This may be anger or shutting down or lashing out or crying. Like people will react in some sort of way when you start getting into like their soft areas or their weak spots or spots they've been hurt in the past or whatever it may be. And I think that's where the progress report comes in to go, there's a reaction happening. And how good is my communication through this to be able to adjust in the middle of the semester here, in the middle of the period, to know like I need to slow down here for that person. I hit a moment, I'm hitting a spot here that they're no longer in control. They're crying or they're pissed off or whatever. And if I'm playing who is right, well, that's when I go for the kill. You lost your composure. You're off balance. Now I'm going to get you. Bam, bam, bam. I'm right. I'm the winner. When in reality, if you care about that person, slow down a little bit. Slow down. They're in the middle of a spot where they're in their feelings. And since we're emotional creatures, even the logic at that point is going to be reflected because they're in guard mode instead of like, I'm open to receive your information mode. And who is right is just going to make it so if you really go for that kill at the end of it, you may be right. But it's going to cost you like trust. And it's going to cost you being a safe place for that person. Or it's going to cost you like the relationship dynamic being hindered because you're pushing when they don't need you to push and they're not really listening anymore because they're defensive. And that's a measurement of in our progress is how good are you at communicating if your person is having these reactions? Well, it's all their fault. It's all their emotions. They control their emotions. We control how we interact with people though. You know, and I think I was watching something recently. I can say, hey, you're being a liar. Or I can say, are you really being completely open about this? Or are you maybe holding back some information? Like it's still saying there's a openness for truthfulness here, but my approach and my communication makes it so I'm either trying to really judge you or push and I'm right, you're wrong. Or I can take the progress report you're giving me by the reaction you're doing and slow down a little bit and adjust my communication for what I believe makes me good at love. That was a long-winded explanation, I know, but that's kind of my prognosis of how does that look?
Yeah, but a lot of that can be broken down to most people listen to reply, not to understand. So we act in what we believe is our absolutes with no room for adjustment or adaptations. So if you come to me with a problem and all I'm doing is listening to you to be able to let you speak, only to be able to give my own opinion and not hear a single word you said, you just used words. I wasn't actually taking the information in. I was just waiting until you were done. It's not going to get me anywhere. So when you come to me with a problem, now I'm faced with, do I want to be right? Or do I want to fix this? Because I can be right for me all day long. I can make any situation fit my narrative if I think creatively enough. If we all went into the understanding of, I don't want to be right for me, I want the relationship to be right for us. Now it's not a matter of, are you right or am I right? It's, is this right? And will this correct what it is that we have going on? So rather than going into it self-serving, you go into it with the open mind of, we have a problem. How do we fix it? I think a lot of the issues stem from most people coming into things with the narrow mindset of, I have to win this. But you're only winning it for you so that you can get that personal gratification. If you're in the relationship, you need to win it for us. So, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Sometimes it can work both ways. More often than not though.
Yeah, the language itself makes it so it's almost like someone has to lose. There has to be like a defeat. And I think you're a good point. You're on the same team. Like, are you working on something together? Or are you just trying to be right?
You're not against one another. You guys are aiming for the same goals. You just hit a speed bump, and that speed bump separated you guys a little bit. You need to come back together to be able to continue on the same path. Because if you don't, you guys are going to take a left and a right, and you're going to have a really hard time hearing one another's side because you're so far apart now. Because you didn't take the very small amount of time and energy to be able to re-bridge whatever gap was created by that bump that happened. So I normally how I fix it, when I'm led into a situation where there's an issue or a problem that I myself have not caused, I'll do something as simple as, do you want to vent or do you want to problem solve? Because if you just want to vent, that one. No, seriously, you want to bitch or you want to fix it? It's pretty simple. And if most people led into that and actually took that cognitive ability to be able to separate the two, you would see a lot of the times people just want to vent. And since you're so close to the other person, they're so involved in your life. You guys are basically one at that point, just working towards the same goal with two different players. Then you could probably mitigate at least half of your problems just by going, oh, okay. So today you're just angry. All right. I'm here to listen to you. That's not a problem. Go ahead. Vent all you want. At the end of this.
With fixers, though, fixers don't do that stuff. You know that.
I know. I'm a fixer myself. I don't like if I can see a problem and I have answers, to just sit on the sideline and go, but I have like 9 different ways that you could be able to alter this. You have to do them. But sometimes you just got to take that self-sacrifice and go, okay, I need to shut the fuck up right now, because all they want to do is let out their frustration. So let them let it out. After that's done, revisit the topic again. Okay, so are we good, or do you want to know how to be able to correct this? It's not that hard. You might get a no. Are you okay with getting a no, though? Because it comes into your ego.
Yeah, it's a tough thing when you're like, so I heard you complain a lot, and you do know I have 9 ways to fix it. If you say no after you vented to fixing it, I'll be very confused about our growth and progress.
And it's detrimental, especially if you two are so close, to see someone make a bad choice. Like if you have 9 options on how to fix this, and then you choose at the end of this to go with emotion over logic, and you're like, I just want to bitch about it, I don't really care to fix it. Inside, that will eat you up. So now you have to be able to work through that on your own. So now it's your turn to vent. You should lead with that, because more than likely, they're not going to ask you the same question. Do you want to bitch or do you want to fix it?
So
you just go, now let me vent.
Yeah, but oh man, you already know the tools that it takes for both people to do this. And especially, and I would love women to challenge this. They have a hard time listening to guys vent, because a lot of times when we're letting something out like that, or we're venting about something that's really troubling us, it's seen as weakness, even if it's vulnerability or courage. And so if you're like, I'm really struggling with seeing why did this happen? Or how do I work through this? I really don't feel good. It makes me sad. It makes me feel worried about my future here. I don't feel confident about it. And those things that you have to work through as a man, whenever, I see as talking to a woman, is generally like, these are being qualified of like, are you a safe place for me? You don't seem like you're strong. Are you my rock? Are you not? Like, it's weird that being able to have a vulnerable moment is construed more as a weakness. And I would probably venture to say this is more for girls than women, because when I speak to women, anyone, maybe early 30s and on, they have a very different perspective of like, I've seen enough bad boys and jerks and people who don't show that stuff, where it seems like the tough guy is the good guy, but they're just as messed up as everybody else is. And they just don't show it. They just get mean or aggressive, or they'll show it in some way that they think that they're doing good communication, but it's destroying my love or my version of love. But by the time they get to be older, they're like, man, a guy who just will calm down a little bit and just, you know, maybe tell me how he really feels and then validate how I feel. That's lovely. But I think for that window that I think is completely disregarded from us being like a young teenager up until that 30s point, whenever you're open and vulnerable and soft and sincere and honest and really show your heart, it's generally it's rejected as weakness. And I've seen that. And I know a lot of the guys in our group have seen that, and things that have happened to people, which is really difficult for them to, I guess, like feel like they can open up to women, makes it so it's that way. And it makes it so we have our own impression of, it seems like the fixing idea makes more sense to guys. If you want to vent, just, you have to fix that. I can't have you be like not strong right now. I need you strong. Just what's the solution? Make more money, or figure that out, or fix it, or get a new one. Just stop whining about it. And it's like, why is it called whining if I'm having like, I just got to vent a little bit? Why are you telling me I'm not being a man, or I need to man up or whatever, if I'm just going, hey, I'm just having a hard time at the moment? Like, I feel like the double standard makes it really difficult in these progress report communications, because if a guy is going, I'm really struggling, and the emotions are not validated in any way, it's just fucking fix it. Instead of going like, I completely understand where you're coming from. I have those same feelings. It's a very different thing. And this could just be like the people that I've interacted with more, you know, and I think when it comes to people's types, maybe I'm just the more aggressive, stronger woman type is something that I've been attracted to. And they're more of the just get it done type. Maybe that's just me. But
I mean, I definitely think that it comes down to a selection process. And even though women tend to be a lot more on the emotional side than the logical side, men still have the emotional side. And even though it's been demonized and considered weak in most aspects, in our selection process, we do let a lot of our emotions drive us to be able to link up with whoever it is we end up in a relationship, rather than you looking at it as what I would consider more of a business. When you are getting into a partnership with someone and you are doing it off of emotion alone, you disregard red flags that could potentially be beneficial to be able to keep that relationship healthy. And you do that because you want to be blinded by love, quote unquote. But if you look at it as, I'm going to be involved with this person, I'm going to have a lot of years invested into it, you want to make sure that you have the right type of person that is going to be able to communicate, to be able to understand, to be able to adjust as well and as easily and as effectively as you do. So that give and take goes both ways. But if you pick the wrong person, if you ignore all the red flags because you let your emotions choose for you rather than your perception of what your best business partner is going to be, and you could put yourself into some situations in the future that will be a lot harder for you to be able to handle because, well, you chose to ignore them at first, but now as time goes on, you're no longer ignoring them. So you're in a situation now where you're venting and all they want you to do is shut up and fix it. But if you did the same thing to them, it would be an issue. Well, you should have picked better.
So easy. That's so simple, right? So simple, so easy.
It sounds easy.
Simple
and what
and easy
sounds
not the same.
what sounds easy is rarely simple.
Yeah, that's why I tell people a lot. I'm like, it's so simple. Oh yeah, you make a choice that does this and this. The choice is always simple. Like the choice itself is always simple. Yes or no. Gonna do it, not gonna do it. Do you see it? Do you not? Like it's very simple. Connecting the emotional reasons for all the stuff that slows us down and into that. Whoa, dang, that's not easy.
Simple just got complex real fast. And there's a lot of unknown variables. It really is. But if you're aware of what it is that you're going towards, and a lot of people forget to live for themselves. They really do. And selfish has been so demonized for whatever reason in a negative connotation that it makes you think when you're being selfish, it's a bad thing. Being selfish is just honing in your own desires. What it is that you want, what you're gunning towards, what you're building for. So when you factor that into a relationship as well, and you're being selfish in who it is that you're choosing to be able to accompany you in this journey, selfish isn't a bad thing as long as you utilize it in a correct manner. You can make selfish a bad thing, but it in essence is not a bad thing. You can use that in a amazing way as long as you have the awareness of how to do so. And a lot of people don't.
That's true. That's why we teach that, and everything is a choice. You have to start with the awareness. You can't make a choice you don't know exists. You can't make choices on things you don't understand. Yeah, you can't make those decisions if you don't know it's there. And most of us don't realize that we have blind spots. But the answers for what would make it easier is it's always been in front of you. You know, even this conversation here with being able to say, like, how do you know in real time whether your communication is working or not working? It seems like I've been talking to people my whole life. I understand this. I get it. I understand. Well, how come if you're so good at it, you have failed relationships? If that's the case and you're awesome at it, these shouldn't be problems because you already have it down. But a lot of these things are just in a blind spot. It's not that you wouldn't understand it if you saw it. It's just I didn't know I was supposed to see it, or I didn't know it was right there. I was looking over this way. And I think that's where it gets into where when we see those moments where somebody starts to break their demeanor, break their self-image of what they believe that they are, and it starts to fall apart and they have an emotional outburst. That's our progress report on the reality of how good we communicate and being able to say, I need to slow down. Hold on, let me slow down a little bit. I'm clearly doing something wrong. Not necessarily wrong for you, but wrong for the us. Wrong for us is not working. I feel like I'm communicating well, but you're hurting from the way I'm doing it. And that should be the progress report where we go, I'm not doing it in a way that seems to be working for us. And I'd hope that like sometimes like that at some point anybody listens to this and goes, damn, like when she starts crying, I don't slow down. Or when I get mad, she doesn't slow down, or vice versa. Like there's a point where somebody starts going like back off, or that I don't like that, or who you talking to. Like there's a point where people start getting defensive. And when that happens, the other person will either go for the kill and be right, or have a little humility, slow down and grow together, versus hurt the other person, which is really just the exposure of your pride and your fragile ego, not being able to slow down. Your ego won't even let you do it. That's why I like the idea of your ego is not your amigo. It's not your buddy in this one. It's going to mess you up. You're going to have a hard time connecting to somebody, even if you have, like you said, selfish goals. Well, do they align with something that works for us? Or that's where a sacrifice would start to come in. That's the choice there. Am I willing to sacrifice for us something that would be better in the long term that makes it short term uncomfortable? Or is my ego getting in the way and you're doing it wrong and I'm right? Choices are it's right there.
And I agree to a certain extent. Egos are based around what we have already set the groundwork for us for what we believe to be best for us. We've built that ego up. You can call it ego, you can call it boundaries, you can call it guidelines, you can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, your ego is revolving around you as an individual, the way you think, speak, act. All of that boiled down to a precise moment and a decision of what you're speaking about, who you're speaking to, the way you're speaking about it. all of that changes and fluctuates with people because we interject emotion. If everything was spoken logic and fact only, then and emotion was taken out of it, you wouldn't run into a lot of these problems, because it wouldn't be, oh, you're crying because I'm telling you truth, or, oh, I'm pissed off because you're telling me truth. I would be sitting over here like, damn, I didn't see that. Okay. All right. Let me readjust. I'm gonna need a little bit on this, but once we come back to this, we're gonna fix these. But the moment you put emotion into it, now it's no longer, oh, you were telling me truth. Now it's, you're being mean, or that was uncalled for.
The judgments.
Exactly. And what is honest is rarely what is nice. Like, honesty and mean are so merged with one another anymore that when someone speaks to you honestly, it sounds so hurtful because it's not pleasant to be called out for things that you otherwise would just shove under the rug.
Yeah, that's the reality. When reality hits your delusion of what you see things as, here's how I see it. My perception is my reality. And when something that disproves my beliefs on reality hits me and it seems correct, I'm going to get pissed or I'll get defensive, or who are you to tell me? And I'm going to judge you back. And what about you? Huh? You're going to talk about me? What about you? And you watch these tactics start to come out. And I think that that's the exposure of your vulnerability in that category. Your reality isn't holding up to yourself, and your beliefs are getting challenged. Your identity gets challenged. Who you are is challenged. And it's easy to get pissed off when you start feeling vulnerable or exposed. I think exposed is a better word. And you'll start to blame and shame and judge. You are mean. You're being a jerk. You're being whatever, pick a adjective. And so you'll blame them and you'll try and shame them into being quiet, so that way you don't have to face the exposed part of where you're not strong in that area. The reality is going to freak you out because it challenges your identity. I don't want to be challenged. Just accept me. Just accept me for who I am. Don't try and push me.
But now you got to ask yourself, are you willing to be able to sacrifice that to be able to benefit the other?
They need to do it. They need to do it, Eddie.
Or should you challenge it?
No, they should just do it, because I don't want my feelings to be hurt.
Now, what if that reverse comes back to...
Yeah, nope. Already blocking that with my defenses. So my emotions will say you're mean if you try and do it. So, get ready for your judgments.
And that's what I said. Once emotion enters the party, facts and logic out the window. You can't have both and reach a determining factor of where this can be cohesive.
I just had a vision of like a personified, like a moment of like, there's a party and like logic is there hanging out with other logics. And there's some people who are a little emotions in there. It's cool. But then like a fight is breaking out between two emotions. Like, hey, screw you. And it started getting highly emotional, a lot of emotions. And logic is like, listen, it's time. We got to get out of here. We got to go. It's getting a little hot in here right now. So logic leaves the party because emotions are going a little wild right now. And so it's going off the chain, and then logic is left and there is no reasoning happening anymore. I just had that party scenario in my head.
No, I see it. And it's kind of like mixing liquors. Like everything's good as long as you have all of the same, dark liquors. And the moment you change that up a little bit, you add something that's completely offset of what that norm is, you end up with a pretty sick little mess. But that's why I said a lot of that comes down to how it is that you go about choosing the person that you're trying to run this marathon with. If you lead it off with emotion and you disregard all of the red flags, and then later on you start to bring facts and logic into it and try to use that as your basis for all of your decisions, you're really going to fuck up when you're trying to have your open lines of communication, because you led with emotion, but now you've changed everything over to facts and logic. So when you're having this conversation, you were him to begin with, but now you're not.
Definitely a fun awareness to try to catch. So on this topic, we're going to simplify. I think we're going into other topics because that's how we operate. But on this topic, I think that the lesson is when you see the other person having that moment, like when they lost composure or they're not handling it well anymore, just know that you're in a fragile area for them. Like it's an exposure of them and their reality of who they really are. And it goes against their beliefs that they had before, and they don't like being challenged. And so my thing for the progress report would say, in that moment, if you want the relationship to succeed and you want a healthy communication dynamic, hit your brakes a little bit. Slow down in that moment and just acknowledge kind of like, hey, I see that we hit a tough moment. Let's slow down. Don't push harder. And I think we have to really catch ourselves. I know that sometimes I feel very bad when I make somebody else hit that moment and I wasn't trying to make them hit that moment, and I'll feel bad, which exposes my part where I feel like you're trying to make me feel bad that you feel bad. Well, you need to handle your shit better, and that's on me to say, hey, slow down, take a break. Don't push right now, pull back and just be a little more reassuring or be a little more safe for that person to feel like it's okay that they're working through something instead of push and be more aggressive so that I'm right. Hopefully that resonates with somebody, maybe saves a dynamic or two, because I don't think that piece is that obvious to us, because I don't remember anybody ever having that conversation with me before. Ever.
No, I mean, empathy is a hard one for me to grasp, because I was always brought up with, if it's on your mind, speak it. Work through that problem with whatever it is that you have going on. Eventually, one of you will either give in or give up. So being empathetic towards somebody and their issue is something that you really have to like reinitiate. And with everybody, it's different. So whoever it is that you're having the conversation with, if they have a problem and they bring it to you, your facts and logic can be absolute and can be right. But is it going to fix it is what you need to understand. Being right only benefits you if it benefits the relationship. So I would much rather take a couple of steps back, reevaluate, and see what's going to be right for the relationship rather than what's going to make me correct in the topic.
And that's the practice. How well can you communicate that with your partner to make sure they know it's in their best interest, that that's what you're trying to do? I want us to be great. Is what we're choosing good for us? That's being right's not good for us, but us being strong together and growing together, or agreeing that we disagree, that can work. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. We're different people, and that's okay. It's a degree of acceptance to it. So well done, dude. I thought it was good. So what I'm going to do is say follow Eddie on his stuff. He may be changing it soon as he decides to choose a new identity than the Defiance one. What are the plugs again for your Instagram and TikToks and all that stuff?
Pure.defiance.
Pure.defiance. So check him out and find out some more stuff. I think you got some funny stuff on there and some good things people to goof with. Or
TikTok's more humor. I think Instagram's just like personal, like day-to-day activities. I think at one point, I think like I had majority of it was for like the gym and stuff. But like I said, if we're gonna go into realms of things like this, I'll probably end up creating something just to be able to like push towards that agenda. Maybe I'll try something new.
Hey, chameleon, man, smart guy. You're a smart guy. So appreciate you for hanging out, man. And yeah, if anybody wants to check out some more stuff, go to, I know that Everything is a Choice right now is still part of our umbrella for Just a Mile a Day. So if you go to the Just a Mile a Day page, you can check out how to get involved with Eddie and I and other discussions that we've had with a larger group. We have more guys that we get involved with, which is on Tuesday night. That's what we're doing tonight. And then we also have classes and stuff that we do for the modules for a lot of these things that we put together. So these are just better discussions. And if you want more from this, check out all the other episodes on this. A lot of it is just me, but I think I'm going to have a lot more Eddie because, man, you bring a lot of great stuff to the conversation. And I think it's fun. I think it's a good thing. So hopefully people learned.
We've always had good conversations, so I enjoy it. Appreciate you having me.
For sure, bro. All right. That's our cue. All right. All right. I'll see you guys.
All right, later.
Choice.